Hello students, in this video we will discuss some of the key concepts associated with post-colonial literature. The first term is abrogation. Abrogation refers to the rejection by post-colonial writers of a normative concept of correct or standard English used by certain classes or groups and of the corresponding concepts of inferior. In other words, abrogation is rejection of correct or standard English by post-colonial writers. Appropriation. Appropriation generally refers to the strategies employed by post colonial societies and its writers and scholars that enable them to use the philosophic, linguistic, and academic tools introduced by the colonizers. Capitalism, free market economies, civilization, the type of culture and society developed by a particular nation. Colonization, the policy by which one nation controls a dependent area or people. Culture, the customary beliefs, social forms, and material traits of a racial, religious, social group, period, class, community, or population. Decolonization. Decolonization is the process of revealing and dismantling colonialist power in all its forms. This includes dismantling the hidden aspects of those institutional and cultural forces that had maintained the colonialist power and that remains even after political independence is achieved. Initially, in many places in the colonized world, the process of resistance was conducted in terms or institutions appropriated from the colonizing culture itself. This was only to be expected since early nationalists had been educated to perceive themselves as potential heirs to European political systems and models of culture. This occurred not only in settler colonies where the white colonial elite was a direct product of the system, but even in colonies of occupation. In colonies where a majority culture or cultures had been invaded and suppressed or denigrated by colonialist practices, the process of resisting and overthrowing these assumptions has been more obviously active. Gugi Watiago has been at the forefront of this decolonizing model. It has also had considerable advocacy in India, where, due to the unbroken power of local languages and their literary traditions throughout the colonial period, a strong drive to revalue the literatures and other arts employing Indian languages has occurred in recent times. It is important, though, not to assume that these cultures remained untouched, and indeed, forms they often now employ, such as the novel, prose, fiction, drama, magazines, television, soap opera, reflect an energetic engagement with dominant practices. To summarize, decolonization is the process of dismantling colonial power in all its forms. Gugi Watiago has been at the forefront of decolonizing model. Comprador class is supposed to maintain aspects of colonial control. Diaspora. Diaspora is derived from the Greek meaning to disperse. Diasporas, the voluntary or forcible movement of people from their homelands into new regions. It is a central historical fact of colonization. Colonialism itself was radically diasporic movement involving the temporary or permanent dispersion and settlement of millions of Europeans over the entire world. The widespread effects of these migrations continue on a global scale. Many such settled regions were developed historically as plantations or agricultural colonies to grow foodstuffs for the metropolitan populations, and thus a large scale demand for labor was created in many regions where the local population could not supply the need. The result of this was the development, principally in the Americas, but also in other places such as South Africa, of an economy based on slavery. Virtually all the slaves shipped to the plantation colonies in Americas were taken from West Africa through the various European coastal trading enclaves. The widespread slaving practiced by Arabs in East Africa also saw some slaves sold into British colonies such as India and Mauritius, while some enslaving of Polynesian peoples also occurred in parts of the South Pacific to serve the sugarcane industry in places like Queensland, where it was known colloquially as blackbirding. After the slave trade and when slavery was outlawed by the European powers in the first decades of the 19th century, the demand for cheap agricultural labor in colonial plantation economies was met by the development of a system of indentured labor. This involved transporting under indenture agreements large populations of poor agricultural laborers from population rich areas such as India and China to areas where they were needed to service plantations. The practices of slavery and indenture thus resulted in worldwide colonial diasporas. India, Indian populations formed and continue to form substantial minorities or majorities in colonies as diverse as West Indies, Malaya, Fiji, Mauritius, and the colonies of Eastern and Southern Africa. Chinese minorities found their way under similar circumstances to all these regions too, as well as to areas across most of Southeast Asia, including the Dutch East Indian colonies in what is now Indonesia and the Spanish and later American dominated Philippines. So, to summarize this long paragraph, diaspora is derived from Greek. It means to disperse. Colonialism was a radically diasporic movement. The practice of slavery and indentured labor in worldwide colonial diasporas. This led to worldwide colonial diasporas. Domination. Domination refers to supremacy over another, to exercise such control or governing. Next term, ethnicity. Ethnicity is a term that has been used increasingly since the 1960s to account for human variation in terms of culture, tradition, language, social patterns, and ancestry rather than the discredited generalizations of race with its assumption of a humanity divided into fixed, genetically determined biological types. Ethnicity refers to the fusion of many traits that belong to the nature of any ethnic group, a composite of shared values, beliefs, norms, tastes, behavior, experiences, consciousness of kind, memories, and loyalties. A person's ethnic group is such a powerful identifier because while he or she chooses to remain in it, it is an identity that cannot be denied, rejected, or taken away by others. Whereas race emerged as a way of establishing a hierarchical division between Europe and its others, identifying people according to fixed genetic criteria. Ethnicity is usually deployed as an expression of a positive self perception that offers certain advantages to its members. Membership of an ethnic group is shared according to certain agreed criteria, even though the nature, the combination, and importance of these criteria may be debated or may change over time. The simplest and perhaps narrowest definition of an ethnic group, therefore, might be a group that is socially distinguished or set apart by others and or by itself, primarily on the basis of cultural or national characteristics. Indeed, the word ethnic comes from the Greek ethnos, meaning nation. In its earliest English use, the word ethnic referred to culturally different heathen nations, a sense that has lingered as a connotation. The perception of common ancestry, both real and mythical, has been important both to outsiders' definition and to the ethnic group's self definitions. Max Weber saw ethnic groups broadly as human groups that entertain a subjective belief in their own common descent because of similarities of physical type or of customs or both, or because of memories of colonization or migration, in such a way that this belief is important for the continuation of the non kinship communal relationships. So, ethnicity is derived from Greek word ethnos, meaning nation. Ethnicity accounts for variation in terms of culture, tradition, language, social patterns, and ancestry. Ethnicity refers to the fusion of many traits that belong to the nature of any ethnic group, and ethnicity is an expression of positive self perception. Eurocentrism, the conscious or unconscious process by which Europe and European cultural assumptions are constructed as or assumed to be normal, the natural or universal. The first and possibly most potent sign of Eurocentrism, as Jose Rabasa explains, was the specific projection employed to construct the Mercator Atlas itself, a projection that favored the European temperate zones in its distribution of size. This map of the world is not merely an objective outline of discovered continents, but an ideological or mythological reification of space which opens up the territories of the world to domination and appropriation. The word only acquired spatial meaning after different regions had been inscribed by Europeans. And this inscription, apart from locating Europe at the top of the globe or map, established an ideological figuration through the accompanying text and illustrations, which firmly centralized Europe as the source and arbitrator of spatial and cultural meaning. By the 18th century, this conception of a collective Europe, constructed as a sign of superiority and in opposition to the rest of the world's cultures, had become firmly consolidated. Then, as now, such collective constructions existed in a troubled or ambivalent relationship with an alternative stress on the nationalism of emerging individual European nation states and their particular cultures. European colonization of the rest of the globe, which accelerated in the 18th century and reached its apogee in the 19th, actively promoted or facilitated Eurocentrism through exploration, conquest, and trade. So, in other words, Eurocentrism is the conscious or unconscious process by which Europe or European cultural assumptions are constructed as or assumed to be normal, natural, and universal. By 18th century, Europe became a sign of superiority. Exile. The condition of exile involves the idea of separation and distancing from either a literal homeland or from a cultural and ethnic origin. Critics such as Andrew Gurr have suggested that a distinction should be drawn between the idea of exile, which implies involuntary constraint, and that of expatriation, which implies a voluntary act or state. In a sense, only the first generation of free settlers, that is, all the many people of varied colonial societies, could be regarded as expatriates rather than exiles. For those born in the colonies, the idea of expatriation needs to be revised. However, if the term is restricted, as Gurr suggests, to refer to those who cannot return to the place of origin, even if they wish to do so, then exile becomes a characteristic of a number of different colonial conditions. For example, it helps to account for the tension involved in constructing a distant place as home by native born descendants of the colonizers. The degree and tenacity with which such native born colonizers perceive the metropolitan colony as home differs, of course, between settler invader colonies and colonies of occupation. Discourse of race and ethnicity were, however, in both a feature that conflicted with desires to claim a special status for the native born colonizer. In settler colonies, the native born colonial wished to claim an insider knowledge but wished to retain a racial distinction from the native. For example, Kipling's character Kim. In settler colonies, the settler also often wished to preserve a racial distinction from the natives that depended on retaining a linkage with the absent homeland, as they formed specific attachments to the new space tensions arose that were central to the continued preoccupation with issues of identity in settler colony discourses. As a classical text illustrating this process is that by the Australian woman writer Henry Handel Richardson, whose hero in The Fortunes of Richard Mahoney shuttles to and fro between Australia and Europe, unable to find a sense of wholly belonging in either space, so ambivalent in his identity. The situation of the increasingly large number of diasporic peoples throughout the world further problematizes the idea of exile. Where is the place of home to be located for such groups? In the place of birth, in the displaced cultural community into which the person is born, or in the nation state in which this diasporic community is located. The emergence of new ethnicities that cross the boundaries of the diasporic groups, different cultural, geographical, and linguistic origins also acts to problematize these categories further. So, exile is separation or distancing from either a homeland or from a cultural and ethnic origin. By 18th century, Europe had become a sign of superiority, and there were many people who had made homes in the colonies who were exiles. Next term, expedition. Expedition is any journey or a trip undertaken for a specific purpose or objective. Exploitation, using another nation or group of people for selfish reasons. Now, let us look at the term hegemony. Hegemony is the dominance of one group over another, often supported by legitimating norms and ideas. The term hegemony is today often used as shorthand to describe the relatively dominant position of a particular set. Imperialism. Imperialism is a policy of extending a country's power and influence through colonization, use of military force, etc. According to Edward Said, imperialism means the practice, theory, and attitudes of a dominating metropolitan center ruling a distant territory.